Welcome to a new deep dive. So picture a wild boar, right? You're probably thinking of those old Asterix comics.
Oh yeah, where Obelix just eats them whole.
Exactly, like a typewriter. It's a fun, completely harmless image. But, well, that exact animal actually triggered the construction of a massive steel border wall in Denmark, like 70 kilometers long.
It is wild to think about. Today's deep dive is all about unpacking this fierce debate over rewilding wild boars, and we're heavily guided by some fascinating research from Kesser and Steen.
Right, from their Nature and Innovation class. So let's talk about this wall first. It literally looks like a modern medieval fortress. It's a meter and a half high, half meter underground, and built entirely just to keep out pigs.
Yeah, exclusively pigs, and the reason why is African Swine Fever, or ASF. For Denmark's massive pork export industry, ASF is, well, it's basically an economic doomsday scenario.
Because of the mortality rate, right. I
Yeah,
mean, 80% is huge.
exactly. It kills 80% of infected pigs. But what's truly terrifying is how resilient the virus is. It has this highly complex, multi-layered double envelope structure.
Cellular armor, basically.
Yes, exactly. That armor lets it survive extreme curing and smoking processes. I mean, it can literally live in processed sausages for up to 9 months.
Wait, like 9 months in a piece of sausage? That is insane.
It really is. And with ASF recently being found in dead boars near Fagersta over in Sweden, the threat is, quite literally knocking at the door.
Right. So we've built this 70-kilometer fortress to keep this doomsday virus out, which makes it seem completely counterintuitive that anyone inside that wall is actively lobbying to bring the boars back. I mean, why would anyone want them?
Well, nature organizations and biologists point to the Danish Red List of threatened species. The wild boar is actually a native keystone species there.
Okay, so they belong there natively.
Yeah, and the primary argument for bringing them back centers on what they do on the forest floor, specifically their rooting behavior.
But wait, if they are constantly digging up the forest floor, isn't that destructive? I'd assume tearing up the soil like that damages the existing root systems.
It definitely looks chaotic, I'll give you that,
Yeah.
but that disturbance is exactly the mechanism the ecosystem relies on. That aggressive rooting churns up the soil and creates fresh seed beds for new plant life.
Oh, so it's actually helpful.
Immensely. It also generates these warm, bare patches of earth that specific insects absolutely need to thrive. They essentially engineer a richer environment by breaking up the dominant vegetation.
That is so interesting. And the sources raise a pretty stark philosophical question here for you to think about. Are we comfortable being the only country in the world to eradicate a native, naturally occurring animal because it's economically inconvenient?
That is the big question.
Yeah.
But the Agriculture and Food Council, well, they present a pretty harsh reality on the other side. Their stance is that introducing wild boars guarantees ASF will eventually arrive.
Right, which would ruin the exports.
And not just industrial farming either. It would utterly devastate outdoor organic farming because you simply cannot physically prevent outdoor organic domestic pigs from interacting with wild boars that are roaming the exact same area.
Makes total sense. And this is where Kesser and Steen threw a massive wrench into the debate. They looked at the actual land usage in Denmark.
Yeah, their findings in that Nature and Innovation class were super eye-opening.
Totally. They point out that, depending on the year, anywhere from nearly half to roughly 80% of Denmark's total agricultural land is used strictly to grow animal feed, like feed for pigs and poultry, not even human food.
Which really shifts the entire perspective, doesn't it? I mean, the landscape is already intensely managed just to support pork production.
Exactly, which leads to Kesser and Steen's proposed compromise. So if the forest desperately needs that chaotic rooting to thrive, and farmers need to protect their ASF-free livelihoods,
They suggest using semi-wild domestic pigs to do that ecological rooting instead, right? Inside enclosed forests.
yes, it's such an innovative middle ground. The domestic pigs create that old-fashioned natural balance by churning the soil, and then the farmers could potentially sell that forest-raised meat at a premium.
It really highlights that delicate tightrope we walk between restoring native ecosystems and protecting agricultural livelihoods.
It really does. And it forces us to ask what we actually consider to be nature. I mean, if we start using domestic pigs as unpaid, outsourced ecological workers to engineer our forests, does the definition of wildlife fundamentally change?
Yeah, like, are we restoring a natural habitat or simply creating another heavily managed commercial zone? It's a very blurred line between conservation and agriculture.
Definitely something to ponder. Oh, and Steen also left some wild notes about Denmark exporting banned pesticides, but We're definitely going to have to save that deep dive for another day.
Oh yeah, that is a whole other huge topic.
For sure. So the next time you picture a wild boar, whether it's an Asterix cartoon or a creature trapped behind a steel wall, ask yourself who really owns the forest. See you next time.